Okay, so now we're going to move on to some actual exercise that I would recommend to the athlete after sustaining an ACL injury. I'm going to start straight at phase 2, because phase 1 is just them resting, so they're not actually doing any exercise at that stage. Okay, so the first exercise that I would introduce would be flexion hangs. This is them just hanging their legs over a elevated surface, so they could be like sat on a table, for example. They just have their legs hanging over the edge to let their knee gently bend. That will slowly give a little bit of strength back to the knee. A way that they can increase that to make it a little bit more challenging for them is like actually lying on their stomach with their legs hanging over the edge, because again this just increases the strength to it. And then one way to make it even harder is to then add ankle weights, because then obviously that will increase the weight against the knee joint and put even more strength into that knee. And then a way to make the exercise easier would be to do something like heel props, which is where you have your actual foot elevated off the floor. This could be with like a towel or a pillow or something. And then plantar flexing and dorsiflexing your foot to slowly increase the strength of the knee. Next exercise I do would be something like leg raises. As you can see here, this is how to do a leg raise. So it's just like holding onto that hamstring muscle. This prevents DOMS and increases posture, and also increases flexibility of the knee, which is something that we are looking for during the functional movement stage. Then I would also introduce a little bit later on in the functional movement stage, but lunges. Again, as you can see here, this increases flexibility and increases range of motion also. A way to make the straight leg raises harder would be to do hip abductions, so like lying on your side, and to make it even harder, hip extension, which again is like lying on your side and doing the same kind of thing, because then that really does stretch out that hamstring muscle and bring strength back to the knee. And then ways to make the lunges harder would to be maybe to lunge with exercise bands, so there's a little bit of resistance to make it a little bit more challenging. And then to make it even harder, lunging using a balance board, so that they need to increase the stabilization within the knee, which again is something that we would be looking at during the functional movement stage. Then lastly, looking to do 30-degree squats would also increase the strength of the knee. Ways to make it harder would just to increase the angle to which they need to squat, so going up to 50, up to 90, a 90-degree squat. And then ways to make it harder would obviously be just to decrease the squatting distance if they're finding it too difficult. If they're finding it really difficult, they can do it up against the wall so that they don't have to worry about falling over backwards, and then go at whatever angle they need to. Okay, once we move on to the strengthening phase, what we'll be doing is looking at calf stretches using bands. So stretching the calf out using bands, and then prone quad stretches is another good thing to do to make it a little bit harder if they're finding it too easy. And then just regular calf stretches if they're finding it too hard. Take out the bands and just put in calf stretches. And if they're finding all that too difficult, they can just do knee extensions and flexions, just like that, if they're finding that a little bit too challenging. And then the second exercise during the strengthening phase would just be like a stationary bike, like you can see here, just one like that, so they're not actually moving anywhere. So that will increase the strength of the knee, because obviously it will be cycling around the whole time. And then ways to make this harder, both 1 and 2, is just to add resistance to it, so it makes it tougher for them to complete a cycle. And yeah, just increasing the resistance even more to make it even harder for them. And then moving on to phase 3, I put step ups here, but I guess it could also be box jumps as well, which is an image on this PowerPoint. Box jumps, as you can see here. So this includes them jumping up a distance not too high. If they're doing step ups, probably about 6 inches steps. Possibly if you're doing box jumps, maybe 10 inches or so to start off with. And then doing it from side to side is actually a little bit more challenging, because that helps with the proprioception, so the stabilization, and again the strength of the knee, which is what we're looking at. And then if they're finding all of that too easy, it's just a case of just increasing the height at which they need to step or jump. So for the step ups here, I've got that they would be doing it up to about 10 inches if they're, for the step ups. And then obviously if they're finding it too difficult, at 6 inches they can just decrease the height at which they need to step up to. So I've put here half the distance, so 3 inches for a step up. And then lastly, the last exercise that I would recommend during the strengthening phase would be sumo squats. A way to increase the difficulty with that would be to increase or to actually include a weight that they have to hold when sumo squatting, and then obviously to make that even harder, sumo squat with even more weight. As you can see here, sumo squatting as so this helps develop balance and stability, and it also targets the hamstrings and glutes as well as the knee joint as well. And then to make it easier, if they're finding that too hard, they can just go to a standard squat as done before, and then if finding that too difficult, they can always just decrease the angle at which they need to, so possibly to a 30-degree angle to squat. Okay, now moving on to the sport-specific exercises that I would recommend to the athletes. So starting off quite simple, going for a hoop run. So this is on the PowerPoint. So a hoop run, as you can see, it improves agility, develops speed, and increases anaerobic fitness. And those quick feet really helping to work the knee joint. And then to make it harder, ladder runs where the gaps are slightly smaller, making it slightly more challenging. I would suggest a ladder run. And then to make that even harder, mini hurdles. So again, just strengthening that knee. And then if they don't really want to move forward with it, and they find the hoop run a little bit too difficult, maybe just quick feet on the spot will help them regain strength of their knee. So then the next one, sidestepping between the sticks. So as you can see, that's here. So this improves acceleration, speed, and agility. Then they can incorporate a ball into that if they're finding that too easy, so just jogging through. And then the final one, they can see if they can go through as fast as they can with a ball at their feet, which is obviously quite challenging. And then if they're finding sidestepping between the sticks too difficult, jogging from the goal line to the edge of the box could just be an easy exercise for them to do to help their knee. Then if that's too difficult, just up to the 6-yard line from the goal line, just keeping that going to making sure that they're not just doing nothing. And then 10-yard pole touches. So this is basically a shuttle run, as you can see here, and this develops acceleration, speed, and improves anaerobic fitness. It develops strength for the ACL and requires changing in direction. Also, another reason why I put down 10-yard pole touches is because as I've made the drill slightly harder, so I've gone from 10-yard pole touches to 10-yard cone touches. So instead of just reaching out to a pole, they have to bend down to touch the cone, so a further distance down, which will also help to increase strength of the knee. And then to make that even harder, I've increased the distance between the poles, and then instead of touching the pole, they have to touch the floor, so they bend it down even further than they were when they were using the cones. And then lastly, rope work, which as you can see here, improves jump height, core strength, and develops back strength as well. And I've made that harder by making them jump from side to side whilst doing the rope work, and then just to make that even harder, just going at it for a longer time, really trying to improve that fitness, getting back to full fitness. And then if that's too hard, all that intense work, maybe just some medicine ball squats if they're finding that too difficult. And that is the end of my first athlete's injury.